While much of the history of Rome is shrouded in mystery, one thing that is generally understood or accepted is that the Roman Empire was responsible for the current course of modern history. And so Rome was understood, the empire, as that entity that overturned civilizations around the world. Part of the mystery of Rome has to do with its origins and where the name came from and who basically started Rome. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be looking at revisiting that construct of Rome and who the ultimate father of Rome happens to be. As you recall, Rome is synonymous with more. And when you look at the various transliterations of Rome and more, you find that they are anagrams. We also addressed how Rome is synonymous with a number of other sovereigns. And historically, the sovereigns that are synonymous with Rome include Turkey and India. Of course, Rome is significantly intertwined with the history that is offered in Scripture. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of the translations and transliterations to get to a better understanding of who this person is that is understood as the father of Rome. And so, at 7311, you find room. That's another transliteration of Rome. It means to be high or exalted, to rise. And so that's the essence of this construct of room or Rome or Rom or more. And here you can see that most of the translations related to Rome involve this idea of being exalted, being haughty, being lifted up, being on high. And then you see some additional ones related to rebellion. But generally speaking, it's about this idea of being uplifted. Again, you see this translation meaning to bring up, to exalt self, extol, haughty, heave up, and even this construct of be. Moving on to 7312, you see room again, meaning height and haughtiness. Again, you see haughtiness, height, and high. And so that's the essence of Rome. And often when you hear discussions about Rome related to scripture, you hear about Rome associated with these hills, this idea of elevation. And at 7313, again with room, meaning to rise or to exalt or extol. Again, for this entry, we have extol, lift up self, and set up. And here's where you start to see these transliterations use Rome or this idea of Rom and Mer or Mar synonymously. And so you can see this in these transliterations here. At 7315, you see that Rome is on high. And Roma at 7317, haughtily. This one's interesting because sometimes the letters M and N can be used interchangeably. And so this is Romam, and it is, again, extolling and praise. It's important to also keep in mind that that name Judah revolves around this construct of praise. And if you are aware of the scripture narrative related to Abraham, you are also likely aware that the history of Turkey is intertwined with the history of Abraham. And here you see the father of Rome. And so the father of the exalted father, the extolled father is Abram. You perhaps did not know this because of the change in Abram's name. And so his name was changed to Abraham. And we're going to look at the significance of that. But the original name for Abram or Abram or Avram was the exalted father. And we're going to look at the etymology so you can see how this breaks down. And specifically, you see here with this name, Abiram, that it is from Ab and Rum, meaning father of height, meaning lofty. And so when you put those two together, you have Abram or Abiram or Averam. And so, in addition to the Abram, you have the Abiram, and it is essentially the same thing. It is exalted father coming from the same roots of Ab and Rum. And so, as you can see when looking at this name change, a number of dynamics have changed with respect to the name. And so it started off, of course, as Abram, which meant exalted father, the father that is extolled, the father that is put on high, also the haughty father. So let's keep all of that in mind. And so there's this idea of this father that is praised. And so, with respect to this Abraham, however, something has been inserted. And so it's not easy to see the Rom, so you might not automatically make that connection between Rome and Abram being the father of Rome, the father of the exalted father. And so that AH that is put in the middle there actually inserts that hey that we've talked about before. You might call it the God code, but it's sitting right there in the middle. And so then it lends an element of holiness to this name, Abram. And if you look very closely at the historical narratives for Rome, Turkey, and India, you see how this Abram, this Abraham has been deified in many ways throughout these cultures. And so when you look very closely, you start to see a little bit more about the true essence of Abraham and how Abraham came to become this very lofty figure, this very exalted figure, this godlike figure to many people that identify with this entity known as Abraham, the father of Rome.